Greetings and welcome, viewers. I am your host and storyteller, Sylvanov. Thank you for joining us while we delve into the world of darkness with Vampire the Masquerade. This stream is intended for a mature audience and does contain mature themes that may not be suitable for all viewers. This game revolves around a dark horror theme and contains content that may be an emotional trigger for some audience members. Please keep in mind that this is a work of fiction. The views and actions of the characters are not explicitly the views or actions of the actual players. At no time should any of the violence or horror portrayed in our game be attempted by anyone, at any time, for any reason. Please sit back, grab a drink and a snack, and join us on the shadowy path that is the world of darkness. And now, before we start, please meet and welcome our players for the evening.
Hi there, I am canadasamson on Twitch, and I am playing Virginia Stone the Toreador.
And I'm Rylyn Dare, also known as MommaMcStabber from McStabber Studios, and I am playing Fiona Griffen, Primogen of Clan Toreador in Prince William County.
This meeting occurs before this past Saturday's evening game stream, the night before. Virginia Stone sitting in the speakeasy at the Haven Club, awaiting the appearance of her mentor, Fiona, Toreador Primogen, who's only recently been returned to unlife and society at large, having been disappeared along with several other members of the elders who have disappeared in Prince William County. Virginia, seated at the bar in the speakeasy, the bartender in a tuxedo and bow tie, mixing drinks for only one, as she has cleared the place out in expectation. The door opens at the far end of the speakeasy, the Scooby-Doo door, the bookcase that slides from one side. The first one to enter is an unknown person who quickly walks in, dressed to the nines, scans around the area, stands beside the door, and motions for the other two to enter. The first to enter, a gentleman dressed in a purple paisley, almost reflective shirt and a fedora. A stately gentleman walks rapidly towards the bar, addressing Virginia and the gentleman behind it, carrying what looks to be a small cooler. Miss Stone, I presume?
Indeed.
Alfonso. And if you don't mind, I will be retiring your gentleman and seeing to the duties.
Of course. I'll look at my bartender and I'll wave them off.
Alfonso doesn't even look twice at him as he walks behind the bar, setting the cooler off to one side. Makes a motion to the other gentleman that stood at the door, and Fiona walks in, sauntering slowly down the carpet towards the bar, taking up a seat next to Miss Virginia Stone.
So, Virginia, darling, it's good to see you again.
Always a pleasure to see your face, Fiona.
How are things?
That's hard to define. Hectic. I think that's a word for it. As I'm sure you know.
Indeed, indeed. Well, we must bring some order to this chaos. Do you not agree?
Absolutely.
Good.
Alfonso takes out a shaker, a couple of bottles, and begins mixing drinks for the pair.
What do you plan to do about it?
Firstly, I think that a certain partner, I wouldn't say friend at this point, needs some straightening around. I see you made his acquaintance.
You can speak plainly in front of my men.
Perfect. Sam Smith needs some educating, I think.
I do hope it is appreciated, the level of restraint I had with him.
Absolutely. I really appreciate the respect and the restraint that you showed. I really appreciate it, seeing as he didn't seem to have earned it, judging by his placement in my office.
He seems to think he is far more important than he really is. I believe that if Mr. Smith doesn't quickly learn his place and the respect that those above him require, I might have to make him an art installation in my office.
Rightfully so.
But I will tell you that if you notice disrespect from him within this establishment, that is not a good reflection on its owners, which he is not one.
Of course.
I expect his appointment to be terminated at the littlest slight.
I will make sure he's aware that he is to toe the line. So far, I've chalked it up to his absence from this domain and perhaps absence from the Court of Roses, but only so much can be forgiven.
Exactly. And while I do not wish to overly prune the garden, I will not tolerate disrespect.
And you shouldn't.
Especially considering how much work and effort and cost to me personally to make sure this establishment isn't noticed by government agencies.
Alfonso quickly pours into a pair of martinis a blood-red liquid from his shaker, sliding one to each of you. A slight hint of bubbles rising from the liquid.
Fiona takes the glass and takes a sip.
It's delicious.
I will as well.
It has the coppery taste of vitae, with a hint of cinnamon and nutmeg, and the bubbles of nitrogen.
Magnificent as always. Thank you.
My pleasure, mistress.
How are you, Fiona?
Well, considering I woke up in the Tremere Chantry, whose brilliant idea was that?
The idea of some that are not present anymore. Mr. Costa thought it might be best, seeing as we ourselves didn't have the tools necessary to wake you. It seems to me that Mr. Costa has made a few decisions of late that we are suffering the consequence of.
Very questionable decisions for certain. It seems that some of these decisions made by either him directly or the coterie as a whole has led Justicar Lucinda to send in teams to assess the viability of our domain.
Is that so?
Indeed.
I knew that the domain was rather unstable, but I didn't know it was that severe.
And for Mr. Costa himself, the Ventru have decided to send a replacement for him.
Oh.
Yes, a Well, a Major Thomas Delaney comes
Do we trust him?
He comes highly recommended. Highly recommended.
It's good to know.
From
We need more people we can trust.
Hopefully, this one has a better head on his shoulders.
I will toast to that.
And I take a sip of my drink with her. But it is hard to be well when there is so much chaos brewing.
That is for certain. There is quite a bit of chaos brewing, it seems, between. I don't mean to speak ill of the prince, but I don't think I need to say much more.
No, you really don't. I get your meaning. Well, needless to say, there are certain members of the court that do need replacing, but that's neither here nor there until enough of our missing are returned to form a stable court.
Agreed. We can't necessarily uphold the pillars of the Camarilla without a full court. We're spread thin.
We are very thin right now, and this is a problem. Makes us weak.
I hope you don't mind me asking, but do you remember much before your abduction? It might help us find the missing.
There's a brief strobe of memories flashing through Fiona's mind of being staked from behind an unknown assailant. The sound of darkness, the taste of degradation, flashes of light being there and suddenly not, being dropped into a sarcophagi, its granite lid closing loudly, echoing above her. The screams of a child constantly, the entire time, the months that she was in torpor, echoing in her mind, until the face of Damien was above her, flipping the granite lid away, presenting her to Mr. Costa before she was hurriedly squandered away and delivered to Mr. Diarquis Crowley at the Chantry.
I do have some memory. The assailant that staked me did so from behind and was deathly silent. I had no warning.
Well, at least you're here.
Indeed. Indeed. It's horrible.
I can't imagine. The short time that I spent down there was awful enough. I can't imagine months down there.
I would not wish it on you at all. Truly. I do wish that Mr. Costa was still around, though. I would love to question him.
As would I. It seems that he had many secrets.
Needless to say, there are some other concerns that I have. I have a very influential toreador badgering me over some children that were left on her doorstep.
A regrettable decision made in haste? Yes. I know this toreador you speak of.
Hasty decisions, Virginia, can cost you everything.
You're right.
She has the kind of connections that would lead to a lot of the attention you guys have been garnering.
That would make sense. Seems we must find a way to rectify that whole situation then.
Well, first, the situation at hand is dealing with the Sabbat
Yes.
and the agents in our area.
We have been trying to find some sort of way to redirect, I think, attention. That's what the coterie was speaking of. They were discussing possibly trying to pin or redirect attentions to the Sabbat to see if that might turn heads away.
What do you know of them?
Of the Sabbat or of the agents? Oh, the Sabbat. I only know secondhand information, as a lot of the action that happened before I returned from my tour, but it appears that there was a blood fountain, I think it was called, that our friend Maurice was in attendance of, along with a couple of others, I think. Somehow Walter Quince is involved, and the sheriff, that was the other name.
Walter Quince brings pictures to Fiona's mind. The Bourgeois Primogen, always been of questionable character at the very least, suspected anarchist within the region. The gangrel sheriff Ramona, one of his close cohorts.
He was around here quite a bit before the club was finished being constructed.
Interesting. Has he been
seen? What I thought.
Has he been seen lately?
No. It appears that I'm surprised you might not have met him at the chantry, for he was delivered there as well, though a little less ceremoniously, I think.
I will tell you that I heard some things at the chantry, but they are very, very cautious there, so I wasn't aware of everything going on in there. But I was able to pick up a few things.
Well, the last we saw of Walter Quince, we left him with a bow tied on his head and delivered him to the chantry.
Cute.
Yes.
Maurice, try not to worry too much about him. I mean, if he's, what is it, the term the younger like to use, thrown under a bus, so be it. I have plans to replace him anyway, as you know.
Alfonso chuckles as he tops off both your drinks.
Oh, it would be good to be rid of him and his smug face.
I know he gives you, no end of distress, so we will make sure that is handled. Take your time. Think this through. Do not allow impulsive members of your coterie influence the decisions. This is truly a matter of sustaining not only our position in this area, but your own lives itself.
Right. I think it is time that I start to assert myself in this group and remind them of the high clans.
Do not be too haughty. Leave that to the Ventrue. They're far better.
Yes, they are.
Utilize your resources Do not be so elitist as to think that the low clans do not serve a purpose, because they do.
Absolutely. But it seems that this group is more used to smashing and bashing than politics, it seems. And sometimes they forget themselves. It's unfortunate Sam Smith seems to fall under that category as well. But
He
we will
behaved
work on
quite
it.
like an anarch, to be perfectly honest. I won't tolerate that.
Understandably, the domain's unstable enough as it is without
Exactly.
anarchs getting in on it.
Exactly.
Alonzo chuckles again, speaking well out of turn and out of place. You're Mr. Toon. He's quite the character.
Oh, he is.
Yeah. People talk.
He's got a
Indeed.
tendency for smashing and bashing for sure. I do appreciate a bit of muscle, but not my taste, I don't think.
Remind your coterie that making a bunch of noise is not the most effective way of maintaining the masquerade.
Yes.
Alfonso pulls out a local newspaper, setting it on the counter with the
and I turn it and show it to Virginia
with the fuzzy picture of a Mr. Toon.
Mm-hmm.
Nearly recognizable, but not quite.
I am getting very tired of cleaning up your messes.
You should have to.
Understand, I do it because I am fond of you. But eventually, my favor will run out. I have high hopes for you, Virginia.
I
Bring
hope
them
that
in line.
I will.
Now, what else can I do for you this evening? And she takes a sip of her drink.
Well, I guess I also wanted to know what you thought of the accumulation of all of our efforts. And I'll gesture around at the club.
I do like it. I do.
It's a shame more not here.
Yeah. It is. We must. Finding the missing is important, but reducing the level of threat is of vital importance.
Do you have any recommendations? I look to your guidance as always.
Do what you must, but always maintain the masquerade.
I heard someone say once, it's like herding cats with our group, but we have help. There's a Nosferatu, Annabelle. She's recently come into our acquaintance. She seems to be tightening her grip on one of the more unruly members of the coterie.
That's a valuable tool in your arsenal.
Yes. She's odd. And I dare say prideful. But a good addition nonetheless, I think.
Fiona
Nothing wrong with a little pride.
is well aware of whom she alludes to.
Mm-hmm.
The prophet, Mr. Ezekiel Ephraim White.
Mm-hmm.
The Malkavian, personally responsible for the deaths of an entire cult of kine. Their displaced children being removed from the county, moved across state lines, and deposited into her friend Evelyn's doorstep at the Succubus Club in Baltimore.
Yes, I do believe he was a catalyst in this situation that I mentioned earlier about the children.
He's been a catalyst for many, but yes, that is the big one. One that we are obviously still facing
what purpose does he
repercussions
serve
from.
other than causing chaos?
That is a question to be seen, but it seems that others of power in the city seem to consider him useful. Kyla Lupo has taken an interest in him from what I've noticed.
The Nosferatu Primogen.
And I do believe he was a friend of Frederick von Doren.
Well, everyone is a friend of Frederick von Doren.
Yes. I miss him.
So many missing. So many.
And all we've come up with is it must be tied to the Sabbat somehow. But how is another thing. How? I wish we'd had more time to question Walter Quince before he was surrendered to the Chantry, but of course, I came at the tail end of that as well.
Well, hopefully this new Ventru that's going to be tasked to observe and monitor and possibly, if we are lucky, assist, can be of some assistance with bringing folks in line with you.
I would appreciate the help.
Utilize this Annabelle, though. Definitely. She has potential.
I will try. She's rather abrasive.
Well,
and
she's
definitely
Nosferatu,
uncultured.
Of course. But still, if you can look beyond that and see how useful they are, it is always one.
I will. Strong women must support strong women.
Indeed.
Fiona, as the conversation progresses, another name keeps coming to mind that's been posted as interest. A Miss Ada Alwyn, a wayward soul who is attempting to gain acceptance into the local domain.
There's this individual, an Ada Alwyn. Do you know her?
Virginia would know her through Mr. Keats.
She seems to want to get permission to set up within our domain.
I do believe she's an acquaintance of Jonathan Keats.
You've heard her mentioned as Grace.
She's it's hard to determine the relationship from the two, but he always speaks fondly of her when he does. I almost think lovers, perhaps, or at least good friends. And Mr. Keats, he's a thin blood that we've come to associate with. I think they are called. I don't associate much with such myself, but he's very interesting. A little brash, but I think that comes from being so close to Kine.
Consider your coterie a lump of clay that you need to shape and mold into the masterpiece it can become. You are Toreador, darling. Manipulating those to do what we need is what we do.
That it is. It is nice to know that there is another Rose on my side in the city once again. I think that I should be able to act more confidently from this point forward, knowing that you're here.
I will continue assisting as I can, but understand if you cannot bring them in line, I may have to sacrifice you all.
Of course.
Alfonso,
expect nothing
hearing
less.
keywords, slides the cooler between the two ladies and excuses himself. He steps out from behind the
Fiona.
bar, walks to the far end, and exits the speakeasy, closing the Scooby-Doo door behind him.
Fiona opens up the cooler, reaches in, and lifts out the head of your ghoul, Frederick. I took care of this because he was captured. The other is dead.
Where was he?
Oh, Frederick was captured by the SI.
Did he suffer?
No. That's why he's decapitated. She sets the head on the bar in front of Virginia.
I reach out and touch its hair a little bit. You can see she's processing.
It feels matted. The dry crust of sweat clumping his hair.
He was tortured.
They'll get what's coming.
Oh, well, ghouls can be replaced, but be careful with them. Simply because they know things that should never be told.
What happened to the other one?
Went looking for him.
That was Sam Smith. Looks like we have more to chat about. I will take responsibility for Frederick, but Lorenzo was stupidity.
Your ghouls should never answer to anyone but you.
I was too soft. You're right. It won't happen that way again.
They are not your friends. They are your servants.
Virginia, if you would, roll humanity, please.
Yeah. So that should be, it's the...
Your total
4. I
humanity
got 4
less
successes.
any stains.
It's 4 successes.
Okay. It is not hard for you to rationalize and come to grips with why Frederick is dead. It hurts. You had an attachment to him. It was beyond that of a servant. He meant something to you. And here's Fiona. She killed him.
I understand that you may get attached. But know.
Sorry.
But know that they are fragile, even with the benefits we bestow upon them. And they will lay their lives down for us.
I'm going to scrub at blood tears on my face as they are definitely starting to stream.
Fiona will reach forward and lightly brush the tears off of Virginia's cheeks. You must be a little harder, dear, if you want to survive.
At that, I straighten up. Then I nod to myself. I will do better. This is a price that I've paid. I will do better.
I am certain I will be immensely proud of you and the work you accomplish.
I hope so too.
And with that, she puts Frederick's head back in the cooler, closes the cooler, but leaves it there for Virginia and walks out of the room.
Fiona
I stand
gets
up and open the cooler. Oh,
walks away. The door is open for her as if her exit was preemptively known. And the door is closed. The last thing you see is Alfonso kind of grinning back towards you as he closes the door behind her, and they disappear, leaving you at the bar with a drink and a cooler.
I stand up and I open the cooler. And I look down at Frederick's face. This was my failure.
It's not hard
I
to
did
read
this.
the expression of fear on his face.
I reach down and caress his face. It won't happen again. I can't do it a third time. And I close the cooler.
As you close the cooler, there's the rush of memories, the strobe-like effect in one's mind's eye of the events of the past that involved him rush to the forefront. The wash of emotions, the affection that you doled out upon him, the thought of Fiona's own hand decapitating him, the last vision in that line of memories.
It was my fault. I knew better. I knew better. Then I'm going to take the cooler and I'm going to leave the speakeasy with it.
You exit. The staff is going about its evening. The place is jumping. The music is loud in the main area, the main dance hall, with the DJ and the bar and a slew of people doing their thing.
I'm going to take it to one of my vehicles.
You exit. A look over your shoulder at the club. The tug at the heartstrings, as it were. There is a stain on your humanity as the loss of Freddie, sets in. Entering your vehicle, heading off to the haven that hasn't been compromised. The expectation of meeting up with the rest of your coterie the next evening. The time for solace, solitude, and reflection, heavy on Virginia Stone's mind. And with that, we'll end our scene for the evening. Thank you all for joining us for this brief vignette. We hope you enjoyed the moment, as I know our players have. Please stick around.
That was fantastic.
Yeah.
And it was such a joy playing with my stepdaughter.
Please stick around.
That was fun.
Community leaders, please feel free to link your Discord/Twitch/Twitters in our chat. You are absolutely welcome to do so. Join us after the fact. We will have a short open Zoom call for after stream chat, and we will run our PSA as we here at Dark Druid Productions and McStabber Studios, Macabre Derek, and all the others that participate in this wonderful community are very mindful of mental illness and the effects of it on ourselves, our family, our friends, and the universe at large. We have a brief message from our friend Chops and then a PSA to follow. We will see you all shortly in the Discord, and we hope you'll join us for a little bit of chat afterwards. Thank you again for joining us this evening. We love you all, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
If you or someone you know is in crisis, whether they are considering suicide or not, please call the toll-free lifeline at 800-273-TALK. Again, that is 800-273-8255.
Hello, I'm Nick Weird. You may know me as Chops. I'm here to remind you that your mental health is a very important thing. We all have problems. And sometimes it can be hard to share them because we don't want to burden other people, or we're too afraid or ashamed of the things we've done to even try. But your friends and family are here for a reason. They'd much rather hear about what's happening in your life than ever hear that something terrible has happened to you. And if you feel like you can't talk to your friends or family, there's resources available for that too. Please reach out to them. There's no need to go through this alone. We all need help sometimes, and there's no reason to feel ashamed or feel afraid to ask for it, especially if you need it right now.
If you or someone you know is in crisis, whether they are considering suicide or not, please call the toll-free lifeline at 800-273-TALK. Again, that is 800-273-8255 to speak with a trained crisis counselor 24/7. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline connects you with a crisis center in the Lifeline network that is closest to your location. Your call will be answered by a trained crisis worker who will listen empathetically and without judgment. The crisis worker will work to ensure that you feel safe and identify options and information about mental health services in your area. Your call is confidential and free. Unable or unsure about calling? Text NAMI, that is N-A-M-I, to 741-741 to connect with a trained crisis counselor to receive free 24/7 crisis support via text message. Again, text NAMI to 741-741. You are not alone. Trained expert advocates are available 24/7 to provide confidential support to anyone experiencing domestic violence or seeking resources and information. Help is available in Spanish and other languages. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 800-799-SAFE. Again, that is 800-799-7233. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, help is available. Call the National Sexual Assault Hotline at 800-656-HOPE. Again, that number is 800-656-4673. To connect with a trained staff member from a sexual assault service provider in your area that offers access to a range of free services. Disaster Distress Helpline. Call 1-800 985-5990 or text Talk with Us to 66746. The Disaster Distress Helpline provides immediate crisis counseling for people who are experiencing emotional distress related to any natural or human-caused disaster. The helpline is free, multilingual, confidential, and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Call 1-800-985-5990 or text Talk with Us to 66746. Again, the number is 1-800-985-5990 or text Talk with Us to 66746.